best creation of God. And God has his own ways of testing his creation. The pandemic may have exposed humanity to a long period of affliction, but my next distinguished guest is respected Mr. Nasir Rohani, who serves on the advisory committee to Portland Office of Economic Opportunity from the USA. He is also a very distinguished member of Portland Climate Action Team. Sir, you are invited to address the gathering.
Thank you very much. I am sitting in this gathering with a really great feeling of emotion, watching these young individuals making their presentations, and really they are giving me hope for our future. I am emotional for two reasons. Number one, even though today I live in US, but I have been having India my home for 11 years. When I was 18, I left my home country Iran to India for higher education, and I was in state of Andhra Pradesh in a little city of Warangal close to Hyderabad, and I was doing my research in cooperative banking. And in the year 1985, I left India for US, not as a desire to go for US, but because of necessity of time. At that time, I was really, because of the Iran situation, and I being a member of the Baha'i faith, I was a refugee in India, and India gave me refuge, but I was stateless. I lost my Iranian passport, and the United Nations was really a refuge for me, a place for me to go to, and then be transferred to to United States for permanent settlement. So this discussion makes me emotional, both being in India, living India, and having India as my home for such a long time, also as UN being such an important part of my life. You know that humanity goes through several stages of maturity. In the history we look at, there were at one point villages. Each village was a government, was a country by itself. Village Sarpanch was the leader of the whole village, and that's it. And villages, they were separate from each other. That's why there were so many languages and dialects, village by village. But then after growth of humanity, we had state governments, and then national sovereignty and national governments. And today we are at a stage that we need some sort of world governance, some organization overlooking the issues of the whole world. And this is what you guys are talking about. These young students so capably spoke about, and I am so happy about sitting through this and listening. So United Nations is not a fancy organization. It is need of time, is necessity for progress of humanity. When we look at the United Nations today, we see that it has a lot of shortcomings. It is a new organization, even though it is 50 years old, 60 years old, but still it is new. It is a new organization, and every new organization, just like a stage of human growth, is subject to weaknesses and problems. Some people complain that the United Nations is a puppet of several, superpowers. Some others say that the United Nations has corruption. But the United Nations is working, and I am, a testimony of this growth of the United Nations, I would like to say. I just give example of growth of United Nations to my own children. I have 4 children, and one of my kids, when he was 3 years old, still he was in diaper. And I was really disappointed. One day I sat to him and I talked to him. I said, my boy, you are now 3 years old, 3.5 years old, you are still in diaper. And it is really difficult for you. Difficult for us to see you still not containing yourself. And his response was, he couldn't help it. He is growing. So he is now a big man. He's 26 years old. He is a student of dentistry, but he was at that time going through those stages. And we really have to understand that the United Nations is in need of time. And sometimes ago, as a member of Baha'i Faith, I was asked to talk about UN and what are the points that we as individuals have to look at UN. I know that you are all tired. There is a long program, but I would like to go through the points that I spoke about. And the first point I said, first and foremost, everybody should become a believer in peace. Number 2 is we should not be partisan in our political views and arguments. We should not argue about issues. We must look at the points of unity. We must believe that all people are inherently good. We should not say that people of this country are this and people of that country are such. We are all members of one human family. Then I would like to point to gentlemen, to men, respect women. Women are the other wing of humanity, and humanity needs 2 wings to fly. And if men do not respect women, the bird of humanity will not fly. And I would like to point to ladies, and that is educate. You will become, you young girls and women, you are either mothers or will be mothers of the future. Educate your boys to respect both sexes and become respectful to women. Again, this is the bird of family that grows and flies. Without 2 wings, humanity cannot fly. Then I would like to suggest that befriend with people of other races, other creeds, other castes, other nationalities, and be at the same table with them. And if we break the barrier of nationalism, racism, casteism, and all these religious differences, and be looking at each other as members of one human family, we would have hope for the future. There are many other things that I would like to share, but really I'm so grateful to all of you for this time, for sharing, and I pray for the success of your school, for success of each and every one of you students, and thank you very much for this time.
Thank you, sir, for your encouraging words. We are indeed blessed to have you here this evening. I would now like to invite our respected founder manager, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, to illumine our minds and hearts with his precious words.
जबकि बहुत सारे लोग कह रहे थे कि हम हॉस्पिटल की तरफ नहीं जाएंगे, हम घर से नहीं निकले।